Hello and welcome to PrepEve, where we revolutionize how you prepare for IELTS. Today we'll be starting with the very first parameter, which is fluency, and we'll have a look as to how we can improve our fluency with regards to our very first part. Let's get started. To ace the parameter fluency and coherence, you need to keep in mind these few things. Alright, the first one is to speak at length. Second, organizing ideas logically. Third is appropriate signposting usage. Fourth is express and justify opinions. And the last one is discuss and speculate about issues. So the last two, don't get confused, we're still talking about the part 1. These two are majorly for part 2 as well as part 3, because opinions and issues are discussed in both of those parts. Let's have a look at the first one, speak at length. Since it's your speaking test, you need to give them enough matter to decide whether you are fluent or coherent in your speech. So if you speak limited, even if they want to score you better on your fluency and coherence, they would not be in a position to do that. So provide them with sufficient information, sufficient data, sufficient matter, so that they can assess you properly. And if they want to give you a 8-band score on fluency, they have some evidence to prove that you are fluent. So if you speak just one sentence, obviously they would not be in a position to score you good in that particular parameter. So speak at length. Now how do we speak at length? How is very important. If a child comes to you and asks you a question, you elaborate information, you do not give to the point answers to them. Imagine your examiner to be one such child who comes up to you and asks question. So in the part 1, it's all about the introduction. So the examiner basically wants you to introduce yourself to him. So he'll ask you such generic questions as to what is your name, where do you work, and where do you live. So you need to give elaborate answers instead of just saying that my name is so and so, I live in so and so place, and I work as so and so. So that would be incorrect. You need to tell them in an elaborative manner. So if a child comes up to you and asks about your profession or where you live, you wouldn't just say that I live in so and so country. You might just tell them about certain tourist places, certain things about the climate, the temperature, and all of that. So you would basically elaborate your answer, which basically means that you will be speaking at length, which would give an opportunity to the examiner to rate you on this particular parameter. Next up is organizing ideas logically. So this is something that is similar in case of our writing module as well. Here you have to organize ideas in a sequence that can be understood by the examiner or the assessor easily. Now you shouldn't be haphazardly speaking or throwing random facts at him that they are not connected to each other. That would just mess up the logical aspect of your speech. So your speech should be logical and should be coherent. So keep in mind that whatever you're saying is meaningful, and if it is translated in your mother tongue, it makes sense. So make sure that your ideas are logically sequenced, and in the end of this video I'll be telling you how you can sequence your ideas logically. Appropriate signposting. So signposting basically means that you have to showcase the direction of your speech. What are you going to talk about? Where are we moving from this conversation? So appropriate signposting, let me just give you an example of this. This particular phrase is the example. So I just gave you a direction that I'm going to tell you an example. So let me just tell you an example. This in itself is an example of signposting. Another example would be, for example, you want to talk about something that the examiner has asked you. You can simply say, let me begin, or let me tell you about an incident And while you're concluding, you can say that in conclusion, or to wind it up, I would want to say so and so. So this is basically, as soon as you mention this sentence, let me wind it up, the examiner is ready to understand that okay, she or he is going to end this particular conversation or this question, and they would understand that you're ready for the next one. So this is how you'd use signposting. It would give the examiner an idea as to where you're moving or what are you going to talk about. So this gives direction to the examiner about your speech, about your conversation. The last two, as I've initially mentioned, are related to the part 2 and part 3. So express and justify opinions. Yes, don't just state your opinion, express them and also justify them. Only then you will be able to complete the stipulated time period and you will be able to speak at length. So to speak at length, you need to have a lot of matter to talk about, and that would come when you're expressive and when you justify your opinions or your stance. The next one is to discuss and speculate about issues. So in the last round, where you have an analytical discussion with the examiner, you need to discuss, because it is bidirectional, it's back and forth. The examiner would ask you questions, you would answer to them, and there's a healthy discussion there, and you need to speculate about issues, accompanying them or substantiating them with examples, so that you can speak at length yet again and the examiner knows what you think about a particular topic. Now everything kind of relates to speaking at length, because after all it's your speaking test and they want to hear you. Yes, that is what exactly they want to do. They would not be able to assess any of the 4 parameters if you stay mum or if you have a limited speech. So speak as much as possible so that they're in a better position to evaluate you. Let's look into the how factor, how to be fluent and coherent in your speaking, especially in your part 1. Now this PrepEve strategy can be applied in all the 3 parts. Let's have a look at how we can do it in the part 1. So first of all, what does it stand for? So P is for past, the next P is for present, and the last one is for future. So past, present, future. This is one way in which you can speak at length. If you create a background, tell about your past or the past situation, or how the thing that is the topic at hand was in the past, what you're doing in the present, or what that particular topic is in the present, and how you want it to be in future, or what you expect out of that in the future. So in the part 1, as I've already mentioned, it's an introductory round. The question could be something like, where do you live? So instead of simply saying that I live in Bangalore or some city like that, it's better that you create a background. Where were you born and brought up? Where are you currently residing? Where are you planning to move? So where were you born and brought up is your past. It has already happened. The present is where you actually are residing today, and the future is where you plan to move, wherein a common answer here could be some other country, because the ones who are taking the IELTS test obviously want to move from their country of origin. So you can name the other country that you're planning to move into. So this is how you can talk about a particular question at length, at stretch, by talking about the past, the present and the future. So here it would sound something like, I was born and brought up in Bangalore, and currently I am working in Chennai, and now I plan to move to Canada for my higher studies or to reside there as a permanent resident. So this is how you will be talking about the past, present and future, talking at length and making sense. So remember to use the strategy, but a big disclaimer, do not use it in every question. It would just not matter anymore if you use the same strategy in every question. It would be evident to the examiner that you are opting for the strategy, you're not being natural, you're not being the way you would normally speak. So here you need to use these only when you think that you will fall short of words, right? So only in those cases where you're not sure about the question, or you think that you might get stuck in between, or you might have long pauses, this is a sure short way to end those long pauses or to avoid those long pauses. So this is what you should be using. Alright, so this strategy can again be used in part 2 and part 3, which I'll be discussing in the respective videos that would be uploaded soon after this. So let's move on to the next one. Fluency is basically speaking at stretch without any long pauses. Long pauses and not natural pauses. So natural pauses are a must in any language. They are required so that the other person can understand you. So pauses are a must, which are natural, but not the ones that you take because you are not sure about what you're supposed to be saying next, or because you don't have anything in your mind and you're totally blank. So those kind of long pauses need to be avoided. Now here, buy some time. Whenever you're not sure about something, a question, or you think that you're blank, you don't know what to say next, just be very calm and composed there. Don't make it very evident to the examiner. Just be calm, composed, relaxed, process the question in your mind in a few seconds, and simultaneously buy some time by saying words like, let me think about it, or give me some time to talk about this particular topic, or this one is a really interesting one. Or maybe you can also say, I haven't really thought about this particular scenario, however, and then you can continue and lead the conversation. So this is how you can buy some time smartly when you're using these phrases, or when you're saying these few words. You're basically buying time for yourself, which would help you process or frame some sentences in your mind to cope up with the conversation or with the topic at hand. So it's better to say something than staying quiet and thinking about, or just looking or staring at the examiner. You're not there to stare at them or just smile at them if you're confused about a question. That's being dumb. Do not do that. You are all intelligent people. We are all adults who take these tests. So let's be very calm and composed. Let's ask them if you have any doubt. If you're not sure about a particular word, just ask them, could you please tell me the meaning of the same or particular word? And then you can buy some time by starting your answer with this particular sentence. Fluency and coherence go hand in hand. To showcase fluency, you have to use connectors, and by using connectors, you showcase that you have coherent speech. Now you understand the circle. To become fluent, you need to use connectors to avoid the long pauses, and then because you're using connectors, you showcase a coherent speech, which basically puts a tick mark on both the fluent and the coherent factors here. So use connectors. Now I do not have to describe what connectors are. I guess most of you are already aware about it. Connectors are the linking words which basically link or connect two different sentences. So here also, while you're moving from past to present, you can use a connector. When you're moving from present to future, again you can use a connector in your sentences. So you're talking about the past, and then you come here and you can say, however, now I am currently based in Chennai. So you talk about your past is in Bangalore. However, that's a connector here which you can use. I live in Bangalore, and then you can say, even though I'm happy here, I want to move to Canada. So even though, that's the second connector that you have used between these two. So the transition is through connectors, and connectors basically showcase that you're coherent, along with the fact that it enhances your fluency. So this is how these two parameters are really connected to each other, and that's the reason why they're together. They're not two separate parameters, but they're placed together as one because both of them are interdependent to each other. If you're not using connectors, if you're not coherent in your speech, you wouldn't be fluent, and to showcase fluency, you have to use connectors or the linking devices. So before starting something contradictory, you start with however, even though, nonetheless. If you're adding something similar, you can say similarly, or in addition, moreover, And if you're giving some example, you can say for example, for instance, or to exemplify whenever you're sharing some personal experience or some experience that you have had in the past. Alright, so this is how connectors would showcase a coherent speech as well as a fluent one. Alright, so the last but not the least, practice. Now you cannot emphasize this enough. Practice, practice, practice. That's the only way to become fluent and coherent in your speech. There's no other shortcut here. You need to practice. Now, how do we practice? We talk to our family members in English. We talk to our colleagues in English. Try to be as good in English, in your spoken English, as you are in your native English. But the problem arises when you are in areas where your parents do not know English or your colleagues prefer speaking in your native or mother tongue rather than speaking in English. So what do? You call our number. Yes, you call our number, which is given below in this video as well as in the description box, or you just have a look at our website and enroll into our course, because our trainers would help you in each and every part of the speaking test. They'll help you out with part 1 separately, part 2 separately, and then the part 3 as well. They'll help you out with each and every parameter for each and every part, and also they'll rectify your mistakes and help you revise them so that you do not commit those mistakes again in your actual test. So we are here with a practical approach to help you out in your speaking test. During the 1 hour session, we would have a speaking mock test every day. Whenever we have a speaking session wherein the trainer would ask you the questions just like the IELTS examiner does in the real IELTS test, and you have to answer to those questions, and they'll make a note of all the things that you've made mistake in, all the grammatical errors, all the mispronounced words, all the deviated and not so fluent sentences, and in the end they'll help you out to rectify those, and they'll tell you these were your mistakes and this is how you need to overcome those mistakes. So to overcome mistakes, it's very important to know what actual mistakes you have committed, which our trainers would help you out in. So we'll be helping out with the mistakes as well as the ways and methods to overcome it, and after that definitely it depends upon how often you practice those tips and tricks. So that's about it for today's video. I hope you liked it, and I hope it gave you some idea about what needs to be done to speak at stretch to become fluent and coherent in your part 1. So the examples given in this particular video were to the point and related to just the part 1. And in the following videos, we'll be catering to the part 2 and part 3 as well. Have a nice day, and please like the video and subscribe to our channel.